Elevate the customer's ride and your profits at the same time. Go beyond recovery with MOGO's small vehicle GPS tracking solutions, which help your customers get more out of their motorcycles, power sports vehicles, and more. They won't say no. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another great episode of On the Throttle with Jackie Van Ham and my buddy Josh, bringing you some awesome news and stories going on out here in the world of motorcycles and power sports. We've got some great stories going on today, including a story Josh brought up earlier when we were just getting the show started about some incredibly important motorcycle company like voted one of the top 100 most influential companies of this past year, and I've literally never even heard of them. So make sure you stick around. You're going to want to find out about that scoop. And then I have got some stories going on from the folks over at American Flat Track Racing and a great looking bike from the folks at Indian Motorcycle. Especially if you're into that 50 Shades of Gray and hot sweaty leather, you're not going to want to miss it. Josh, what you got going on in your neck of the woods today?
After you say that, I've got nothing. The two that I have today is, once again, I have a new motorcycle company that is really influential, that will have a huge dollar to smile ratio, actually smiles to dollar, and also they will haul everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. And on top of that, there's another motorcycle company that was here, then gone, then back, and they've got a big deal with someone, and they've got new models, and we're going to talk about those.
Well, that sounds awesome. I love hearing about new companies and new bikes that I've never heard of. I mean, that's the whole point of this show out here, right? We try to bring up some exciting news and try to broaden everyone's horizons out here. We all learn something together. If you have missed any of our previous episodes, you can always go back and check them out. They live out here forever on the internets, here on the Facebook page of Motorcycle and Power Sports News or the Motorcycle and Power Sports News YouTube page. So make sure you go check out any of our past episodes. So my very first story for today, as promised, involves 50 Shades of Gray and sweaty leather. Oh my! This motorcycle just was released this past week from the folks over at Indian Motorcycle. And as you can tell by the picture on your screen, it is indeed all sorts of shades of gray, pun intended, but it is dead sexy for sure. It is this brand new limited FTR Stealth Gray. American motorcycle manufacturer Indian Motorcycle just announced the special limited edition version of its punchy flat track style FTR Roadster called the FTR Stealth Gray. It has been specifically designed for Indian's international markets, and it features a one-off color scheme and is to be restricted to just 150 units worldwide. The original FTR was launched in 2019 and has proved to be one of Indian's most popular overseas models, partly because it is moving away from the very traditional, very oversized, very large U.S. cruiser style found in the rest of the lineup. It's got some really sharp steering and distinctive styling inspired by the FTR 750 Racer, which we will be talking about in just a few minutes because that is the machine that is raced in American Flat Track Race Series, and it has absolutely been dominating since it first joined the AFT series. A variety of models were offered with top spec S examples boasting TFT instruments, 3 ride modes, Brembo brakes, and Akrapovic exhaust. In 2021, the FTR was refined further with a remap and new 17-inch wheels. The Stealth Gray now adds that S spec to what Indian calls a striking new paint and graphics scheme designed to appeal to the international market. I think that this is absolutely dead sexy. Josh, what do you think about this beautiful FTR from Indian Motorcycle?
No, I've loved the FTR from the beginning. I mean, it is a great chassis. It's a great bike overall. And it's Indian took and said, look, how are we going to get other people into the Indian brand? And this is the best way to do it. It's not making another cruiser. It's making something that's going to be raw. It's making something that's going to attract younger people that want to go out, haul the mail, don't necessarily need a sport bike to do it. And it's got still great handling, big horsepower, and with that gray and black and all the other stuff, yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah, this is a really, really very sharp paint scheme. It has absolutely grown on me the past handful of days since it has been released out here on the internets. It's really grown on me. I really, really love it. 150 limited models, though. Woo! whoo, those are going to go awfully
Yes,
fast. And I bet you more than anything, I haven't checked the Indian Motorcycle website today, but I bet you they were probably taking deposits online, and I bet you it is probably
I'm sure.
probably sold out by now. But a really, really sharp looking bike. And I've got friends that work for Indian Motorcycle. Spoiler alert, I also used to work for Indian Motorcycle. So I'm a fan of the brand. I'm familiar with their quality and what they do over there. But the one word that keeps getting used towards these FTR bikes is hooligan for multiple reasons, but this
Yeah.
bike is a bad mammy jammy, and it is incredibly fast and very rock and roll. So anyway, very cool machine from the folks over at Indian Motorcycle. What do you have going on for your first story today, Josh?
So we are going to go the complete opposite direction from incredibly fast, but still incredibly fun and unbelievably useful. So there is a company that was originally called Optibus. They are now called Roam. So this year they were named one of Time's top 100 most influential companies out there. So they ranked this way because they're disruptors for the industry. They're in with companies like Apple, Amazon, Moderna, all these other ginormous companies. So what are they coming out with? Well, they are coming out with this. This motorcycle right here may look like kind of humdrum. What is it? This is an electric motorcycle that can come in two configurations. There is a single battery, and this is the prototype. This has the single battery setup here. And then they also have a dual battery setup. So the dual battery machines will have up to 124 miles of range, which I know everyone kind of says, is that far enough for what I want for a day? Hear me out to where we're going with this. It has a 440-pound payload. And when you look at the back end of this bike here, you can see those ginormous floorboards there, which tell you there could be something different with this. It has a 56-mile top speed. Of course, if you go with the single battery model, it has 62 miles of range. Now, you can see those floorboards there because here's where it gets a little interesting. This motorcycle will go for $1,500 in the single battery setup. If you go with the dual battery setup, it is $2,050. So to me, this sounds absolutely amazing. And who they're targeting in this is where they've been testing. They've been testing in Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, and other countries in Africa and that. Now, we've all seen photos of the little kid on the motorcycle, and he's got 10,000 bags of rice on the back. He's hauling more than most people do annually with their Ford F-150. These motorcycles are made for that exactly, and that's why you see the rack. That's why you see the floorboards. They are meant to haul you and your family, and at $1,500, that is a great mode of transportation. So when you look at this, and especially in this photo here, you can see that they've done things to simplify this bike. Now, it's got cable-operated front drum. It's got a rod-operated rear drum. Yes, exactly the same as your 1979 XR80 did. On top of that, when you look, the motor is actually mounted so the center of the motor is right on the swing arm center line too. What that means is that once the chain tension's adjusted, it's always the same. So what they've done with this is they have made this the absolute simplest electric motorcycle that they can, because there's a lot of places where you can get electricity, but you're not necessarily going to get good fuel. So this, for what 99% of what people are going to use this motorcycle for, this hits the head of the nail. To me, I'm super interested in it because when you look at what so many people do in this area, even in the US as commuters, I think as they develop this bike, this could open up a whole lot of doors for things. Jacqui, what do you think? I know we're both big e-bike fans and e-motorcycle fans. Do you see this as this disruptive game changer that Time magazine does?
Okay, so now I get what you're saying when you say that about what this whole story is and the fact that they are looking to go into these markets where
Yep.
I think that's such a great point when you said that the gas is not very good quality in some of these much more like rural type
Yep.
situations, a little bit less developed areas. I think that is really, really interesting. And I'm not going to lie, I like the style of this bike. I love the
It looks
little
great.
fairing on the front. I think it looks excellent. If they would come to the US with this, I think this would be a slam dunk at $2,500 because in this country right now, $2,500 gets you an e-bicycle type machine,
Right.
not an e-bike motorcycle type machine. And this, in my mind, is much closer to that e-bike motorcycle type platform versus a
Yep.
bicycle. I would absolutely, if these showed up in the US, I would
Same here.
be very interested in looking at this, to be honest. I don't think that this is necessarily their intention, but I'm here to say yes, please, and that I wish that they
Yep.
would. I think it's super sharp looking, and again, a really great solution for folks that are in a little bit more underdeveloped areas. So, hence now why I understand, them being in a very influential spot with the folks over at Time Magazine. A very
Yeah.
interesting bike. And what was the name of this again?
It is Roam. ROAM is the name of the company, and really to me, this is that game changer for those areas of the country because or for those areas of the world, because when you look at so many other countries, it's motorcycles. That's what people have. They're less
Yep.
expensive. They're easier to maintain, and I mean that's what they do everything on. This is your SUV of the motorcycle world for those people. I mean, they are gonna. I mean, and they're so simple. This is gonna
Yeah,
fly. I love it.
it's definitely, yeah, it's super interesting. I very much looking forward to keeping an eye out and seeing what happens with this bike, and if
Yeah.
this ends up going into other markets. I think that has the potential to be very exciting and very disruptive to what's going on with our e-bike situation here in the United States. So I am
Yep.
here for that for sure. So my story for today, a little bit of a pivot, but on the same thread of what I started with Indian Motorcycle, I wanted to go ahead and peek in on some of the news over at American Flat Track Racing. I don't know about you, Josh, but I'm a huge fan of dirt track racing. I love watching it. I think it is genuinely some of the most exciting racing going on, especially here in the United States. And it is starting to really, really spread over into the international and global markets as well. Everybody kind of caught flat track fever within the last handful of years. It still is incredibly exciting over there. They've changed things up a little bit within the last handful of years. There's a new category within the pro level racing going on. I guess is the best way to explain it. Right now, there's super twins, which is like the super pro twins class. And then there's a production twins, which is still very fast, but it's more production based bikes. But the racers are still pros. And then there's the singles class. So that's what's going on over there. And I just wanted to go ahead and touch on some of the news that's happening in that neck of the woods. So this past, within the last race that they had, we'll just say it that way. The last race that they had happened out at Laconia. Laconia, of course, very iconic American V-twin, massive rally. It's been going on for, I don't know, I think almost 100 years now. It's a very old rally. It's been going on for 80 some odd years. Anywho, they added this short track race to their 2 week event. And anyway, Laconia is not known as being a very good quality track. We'll put it that way because they just kind of build it. But it still is some pretty exciting racing. And here's why I want to talk about it a little bit in particular is because the bike you see at the very front of your screen right now, that is Kentucky's own Mr. J.D. Beach, who ended up winning his very first oval dirt track race in the American Flat Track Race Series at Laconia. So super exciting news for Mr. JD Beach, of which I am a huge fan, being from Kentucky also. He also is just genuinely an aces, super nice human being, and an incredibly talented American racer. He races road racing, he races dirt racing, he does everything and does it all pretty darn well enough to win his first oval race with the folks over at AFT. He has won on a TT type course previously, but this was his first oval race. So let's go ahead and take a look. Also, I've got a couple of more slides to show you of some of the standings and things that are going on. There definitely has been some exciting movement going on over in AFT land. This is going to be the current standings. However, Mr. Jared Mees, who is incredibly fast and is a multi-year previous champion, he is at the top of the pile right now. Mr. Dallas Daniels, another excellent multifaceted racer. Dallas Daniels does road racing and dirt racing as well and is incredibly fast. Briar Bauman is our previous champ. JD Beach in 4, Brandon Robinson 5, Bronson Bauman is in 6, Vanderkoy 7, Davis Fisher 8, Jesse Janish 9, Brandon Price 10. Now, if we go on through to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about the production classes. So in production twins, which again, the name is exactly what it is bringing production bikes back to American flat track racing. There was a little bit of pushback from fans and from supporters of American flat track racing that the race bikes in Super Twins class were getting a little too specialized. They were a little bit too one of one. It turned into a little bit of a how deep are your pockets type scenario. Is that the nice way to put it, Josh? So there was a lot of pushback, and the fans really made a lot of noise about wanting there to be an actual true production class. Much do love watching some of the World Superbike racing that has a closer tie to production machines. This is what this is intended to be. So right now, Mr. Jesse Janish, who for years was known as a TT specialist. He has absolutely wiped the board with that whole idea and is now absolutely dominating over in production twins, which means beyond TT friends, he's crushing it on oval, he's crushing it on short track, he's crushing it on TT as well. Corey Texter from the legendary Texter family is in 2, Nick Armstrong 3, Ben Lau 4, Ryan Varnes 5, Billy Ross 6, Johnny Lewis in 7 aboard a Royal Enfield, Cole Sabala 8, 9, Cody Johnson, and 10, Colby Carlisle. Now, I wanted to bring that up a little bit because Colby Carlisle absolutely dominated several years ago in the singles class. He has now made a bump up and is racing in production twins and is now in the 10th spot. The interesting news also about this production twins class, you do have the capability to also race in super twins and be in production twins at the same time, so long as your bike is applicable. All right, so my final slide, I believe, is going to be showing you the singles class. This is where it gets super interesting. Singles class right now, Cody Kopp, and that name should sound familiar to any of my flat track fans out there. Mr. Joe Kopp is his dad, who is a very super well-known national championship in his own right and still occasionally comes out and bangs bars. I saw him several years ago racing some of the hooligan racing of all places. Well, this is his son, Cody Kopp. Cody is absolutely on a rail, smoking tires, super fast, incredibly young man, and is just dominating the singles class right now. Do not, by the way, think that the singles class is the slower or feeder class of the twins classes. Most racetracks, they put up almost the exact same lap times. They're just on different pieces of machinery. Morgan Mishler 2, Maxwell 4, Dalton Gautier, previous champion in 4, Trent Lau 5, and then you can see the rest of the standings. I wanted to bring up Cody Kopp also because he is aboard a KTM, which is a little bit of a rarity for American flat track racing, and also very exciting. So not only is he crushing it, he's aboard a bike that is not super well known out here in AFT, but is absolutely crushing it. So that's what's going on over at American Flat Track Racing. They are going to be in Lima, Ohio this coming weekend. So if you are out here in the middle part of America and you want to go check out some of the best racing that you are probably ever going to see, make your way over to Lima. It is a pea gravel track. It is terrifically exciting, and it is absolutely brilliant racing. And make sure you check out AmericanFlatTrack.com to see if there is a race in the rest of the season near you. Josh, what do you think about that?
I mean, flat track's always been so interesting just because of the fact you've got these guys that are wheel to wheel the entire time in most cases. And what I've always found with any sort of oval/circle track racing is, especially on dirt, depending on your setup, depending on how things are going, there are 8, 10, 12 different lines through each corner. And you have no idea what the dude in front of you is going to take. So that guesswork is what makes that it's just a world unto its own. And it's also learning that slip is why you see so many great racers in other disciplines come from dirt oval track, because when you learn how to control a bike on something like that, you can control it anywhere.
You're absolutely right. There is a lot of really neat crossover. You know, dirt track racing is a very, very American style of racing, and you will very be hard pressed to see very many really good road racers come out of the US who do not have their roots or have background in dirt track racing. So
Yep.
that is what's going on over at AFT. What's your next story for today, Josh?
So there is a company that was here, then left, then got a boatload of money from KTM, and then has now decided to come back. And if you haven't figured it out already, I am talking about CFMOTO. So they've come out with, for this year, there are 7 models back in the US. Now, they've always had kind of some presence here, be it with some of their side-by-sides and some of their off-road ones, but they've officially come back with their 7 2022 motorcycle models. So their headquarters was in Minnesota in 2005. It was in October of 2017 when they signed on with KTM. There's 3 models that I thought were kind of interesting that we're going to cover here. The first one is the PAPIO. That'll be the next slide here. That if I believe correctly, we found a photo of Jacqui with bedhead and wearing moon boots.
I love everything going on in this picture. You can throw shade all you want, Josh. I love everything that's happening in this photo.
I do too. I honestly do too. So I mean, I could never obviously pull off anything that extreme, but I mean, kudos to anyone that can. But this bike is basically, it's CFMOTO's Grom equivalent. It looks like it has slightly bigger wheels, but at $29.99, it's got a little bit better price tag. There's some other neat features that it has. So it's not this bargain basement thing. It's a well-placed motorcycle that's got a little bit of a discount over some of the other ones that it's competing with. The next one is the 300SS. Now, this is a 292cc, 29 horsepower sport bike. When I was going through the specs on this, there is a 300 millimeter single front disc. There is I forget what size it was. There was a decent size rear. I mean, most of the stuff on this looked to slot in fairly well with a lot of the other 300cc motorcycles that have been available as of recent. To me, one of the other things that's appealing on this is this one, $42.99 is the price. And when I looked through it, it wasn't like they skimped out and said, we're going to make something super cheap. I mean, to me, everything that I see about this looks like a solid quality bike that you're going to be able to get in a little bit less of a price. Speaking of that, they also have their adventure bike, which is the 650 ADVENTURA, which I'm not as crazy about the name, but we're going to go with it. This bike is set up to go, I mean, it is to go explore roads. Now, when you look at the wheels, tires, things of that nature, obviously this is much more geared towards pavement. But when you look, this is a $6,799 motorcycle that comes with a TFT display. It comes with hard bags, and it's got a 650cc motor. To me, for someone looking to get in, in this price range, you're looking at 200 to 300 cc's less, and obviously that much less in terms of horsepower. If most of your riding is going to be road oriented, but you still want to go out and crush some miles and have some fun, to me, this is an awesome price point to do it with. When I saw that they were coming back into the country, and I saw this and I saw these prices and some of the options listed here, I was frankly impressed. I'm glad to see this because once again, we get so many of the items that are priced in unobtainium that keep people from coming into the industry, that keep us from getting new motorcyclists. Is this going to run with a 1250 GS? No. Could you buy 5 of these for the price of a 1250 GS? Yes. So to me, when I look at those two things, when we want to get more people involved in our industry, this right here is the way to do it. And I absolutely love seeing bikes like this. What are your thoughts with this, Jacqui?
Well, I do love seeing these brands that are lesser known here in the United States starting to pop up with really I mean, they
Yeah.
have for years popped up with interesting bikes. It's nothing new, but now we're just becoming a little bit more aware of them thanks to the internets and awesome stories that you
Yes.
bring to us, Josh. But here's the real kick. Here's the real of it. These companies that are lesser known to us here in the US have been manufacturing for the
Yep.
premium brands for years.
Yep.
CFMOTO, I'm sure, has been in bed and has had partnerships with companies that you and I both know and love. TVS, which is a huge brand in India, has done the exact same. They are the manufacturers of the BMW 310.
Yep.
These companies that just because they're not known to us does not mean that they don't necessarily make a good product. They just make a
Right.
good product for another company that then charges a lot more money for it. So
Correct.
I personally love these house brands now starting to make their way to the US market
Yeah.
because I totally agree with you. I mean, how fun would it be to take, this pile of money that you have, you're thinking about buying a GS, and go buy four of these for you and your buddies and you all go on a rad trip together. I mean, to
Yeah.
me, that sounds like way more fun. Although to be fair, I do love the BMW GS. It is an excellent
Same
machine,
here.
but I still think that I think you're on the right track with let's buy a handful of these for the same amount of money and let's go have an adventure with some of these other brands that you may or may not be familiar with.
You know what my problem is with that? Finding
Huh?
four
You don't have any
friends.
friends.
Correct.
Josh, I'll tell you what. You buy the bike and I'll go ride with you. How about that? You provide and I will ride.
You're gonna ride a different direction. We're gonna get 2 miles out, and you're like, "See ya, I get it."
Hey, so long as I don't have a comm system in and you keep your helmet closed, we're all good to go, Josh.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect.
And with that, my friends, that is going to be today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in for another great episode of On the Throttle with Jacqui and my buddy Josh, for reals. My buddy Josh, make sure you go on ahead, hit that share button so that way your friends can be in the know of all the awesome things going on out here in motorcycling. And we will see you next week.